thought that this would be a great topic on today. This topic is going to be poverty. It's some facts and some explanation on how poverty or impoverished communities cope and how they are affected. So I'm going to read some statistics for y'all. I'm going to read some facts. And, those of you who are not or haven't ever had to experience financial problems or, um, poverty, um, maybe this will be some educational facts where you could look at things a little different. So, family problems. The poor are at greater risk of family problems, including divorce and domestic violence, health, illness, and medical care. The poor are also more likely to have many kinds of health problems, including infants. Education. Poor children typically go to rundown schools with inadequate facilities. So I'm gonna read all of this. I'm gonna keep going until I feel like I reach my point. The consequences of poverty. Regardless of its causes, poverty has devastating consequences for the people who live in it. Much research conducted or analyzed by scholars, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations has documented the effects of poverty and near poverty on the lives of the poor. Many of these studies focus on childhood poverty, and these studies make it very clear that childhood poverty has long life consequences. In general, poor children are more likely to be poor as adults, more likely to drop out of high school, more likely to become a teenage parent, and more likely to have employment problems. Although only 1% of children who never are poor end up being poor as young adults. 32% of poor children become poor as young adults. And I just want to let y'all know that these are statistics. There's an exception to every rule. Some people are able to grow up in impoverished areas and, you know, um, situations, and they can, prosper out of that. And that gives them the fuel that they need to not be that way. A recent study used government data to follow children born between 1968 and 1975 until they were ages 30 to 37. The researchers compared individuals who lived in poverty in early childhood to those whose families had income at least twice the poverty line in early childhood. Compared to the latter group, adults who were poor in early childhood had completed 2 fewer years of schooling on average, had income that were less than half of those earned by adults who had wealthier childhoods, received 826 more annually in food stamps on average, were twice as likely to have been arrested, males only, and 5 times likely to become, to have, I'm sorry, y'all, were 5 times as likely to have, I don't know, born a child, females only. It's just how they put it, BORNE. I never seen it that way. We discussed some of the major specific consequences of poverty here, and we'll return to them in later chapters. So I'm gonna see how long this is. It's pretty long because these are some facts and these are studies that have been shown and proven. The poor are at greater risk of family problems, including divorce and domestic violence. I read that before. A major reason for many of these problems families experience is stress. Even in families that are not poor, running a household can cause stress. Children can cause stress, and paying the bills can cause stress. Families that are poor have more stress because of their poverty, and the ordinary stresses of family life become even more intense in poor families. The various kinds of family problems thus happen more commonly in poor families than in wealthier families. Compounding this situation, when these problems occur, poor families have fewer resources than wealthier families to deal with these problems. Children in our future. Childhood poverty has lifelong consequences. Poor children are more likely to become poor when they are adults, and they are at greater risk for antisocial behavior when young, and for unemployment, criminal behavior, and other problems when they reach adolescence and young adulthood. According to growing evidence, one reason poverty has these consequences is that it has certain neutral effects on poor children that impair their cognitive abilities and thus their behavior and learn potential. Emerging research in neuroscience and developmental psychology suggests that poverty early in a child's life may be particularly harmful because the astonishingly rapid development of young children's brain leaves them sensitive and vulnerable to environmental conditions. Very understandable. In short, poverty can change the way the brain develops in young children. The major reasons for this effect is stress. Children growing up in poverty experience multiple stressful events: neighborhood crime and drug use, divorce, parental conflict, and other family problems, including abuse and neglect by their parents, financial parenting problems, unemployment, physical and mental health problems of one or more family members, and so forth. Their great levels of stress in turn affect their bodies in certain harmful ways. As two poverty scholars note, it's not just that poverty induced stress is mentally taxing, it's experiencing early enough in childhood, it can in fact get under the skin and change the way the body copes with the environment and the way in which the brain develops. These deep, enduring, and sometimes irreversible psychological changes are the very human prices of running a high poverty society. One way the poverty gets under children's skin is followed. Poor children, high levels of stress produce unusually high levels of stress hormones such as high levels of blood pressure, because these high levels impair the neutral development. Their memory and language development skills suffer. This result in turn affects their behavior and learning potential. For other psychological reasons, high levels of stress also affect the immune system. So the poor children are more likely to develop various illnesses during childhood and to have high blood pressure and other health problems when they get older. And because their biological changes that they make poor children more likely to end up being obese and to have drug and alcohol problems. Okay. Health and medical care. We did education. The poor, we read that. Okay, many poor families spend more than half their income on rent, and they tend to live in poor neighborhoods that lack job opportunities, good schools, and other features of modern life that wealthier people take for granted. The lack of inadequate housing for the poor remains a major national problem. Crime and victimization, poverty. Okay, so in short, the United States has so much more poverty than other democracies, in part because it spends so much less than they do on helping the poor. The United States certainly has the wealth to do the following: follow their example, but it has chosen not to do so, and a high poverty rate is the unfortunate result. So I am going to go to some more facts for y'all about people who stay in impoverished communities and how they are affected in life sometimes, or the majority of the times. Poor people are more likely to have several kinds of family problems, including divorce and family conflict. Poor people are more likely to have several kinds of health problems. Children growing up in poverty are less likely to graduate high school or to go to college, and they are more likely to commit street crimes. And I have seen this where, kids drop out of school because they feel like, they have to hold the house down. So, let me see some other things. Okay, it says the effects of poverty can also follow a child into adulthood, leading to chronic illness and lack of education or ability to work. The effects of poverty are more than just missing a meal. Families struggle with chronic food insecurity, hunger, and malnutrition. Okay. Poor people don't get to enjoy good things of life when they don't have money. There's little to what you enjoy. Poverty is a difficult cycle to break and often pass from one generation to the next. Typical consequences of poverty include alcohol and substance abuse, less access to education, poor housing and living conditions, and increased levels of disease. What is the best way to help people in poverty? Give them some money, or even a few dollars could help. Offer your help without being condescending or judgmental. Try to help them find a place like a shelter or soup kitchen. Ignoring the poverty around you or making judgment calls about people in poverty is a surefire way to do nothing to help. I respect that. Trying to read just, new facts. Chronic unemployment, personal debt, educational failure, addiction and trauma, and the breakdown of the family. The third root cause of poverty is man-made. Political strife in the present or recent past plays an important role in the manifestation of poverty. Violence, instability, and corruption brought about by a country's political divides contribute to violate economies and enormous bloodshed. What is mentally? Okay. Someone with a poverty mentality may think that they can never move out of Shantae Town. Poverty mentality may be detrimental to school performance. Poverty mentally can contribute to joblessness and eventually becoming homelessness. Someone with poverty mentality may become set in their dietary, sleep, and work habits. A poverty mental, a poverty mentality is a mindset that for whatever reason people make choices to not progress their own human capital. Alan Weiss states that one reason for people having a poverty mindset is they continue to think they're a victim other than people's choices and decisions. So this is something else I'm gonna read, and then I'm gonna end this video. Um, Crime, lack of education. Trying to find some good info. Yep, I think I'm about to just end this video because this was a lot of, great facts. I know there's more. Um, Effects of poverty on society. Issues like hunger, illness, and poor sanitation are all causes and effects of poverty. This is to say that not having food means being poor, but being poor also means unable to afford food or clean water. The effects of poverty are often misunderstood, are often